What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another Clash Mini video on the channel. The tier list is here. The update, the balance changes dropped. It's taken me a little bit to make this tier list, mainly because I've been trying to make minis work. I've been trying to really get you the most accurate tier list that I could. You guys are still going to probably have some hot takes about what I say in this video, but that is okay. We're going to do a little bit differently than we normally do. We're going to be doing the heroes first. We're going to be doing the 8+, then we're going to be doing the 1 to 7 heroes. Then what I want to do is I want to go over the 2-cost minis, then the 3-cost minis, then the 4-cost minis, all separated so that you guys can see how they rank versus each other mini in their category. I think now that there's just so many minis, I think it's really hard to just say, okay, this mini's in the S tier, but this mini's in the D tier. Why? You want to kind of rank them versus the elixir cost that they are. That way you get a better gauge on the tier list and the meta. All right, so here we go, jumping into the hero tier list 8+. We're gonna have the D tier. It's gonna be the monk. The monk, unfortunately, just is not there. It's the only pretty much mini in the game that's just not viable. The monk, unfortunately, just struggling on the struggle bus. It really just can't do much. If you're on the 8 to 10 like we are right now, I'd rather have the skeleton king or the barbarian any day of the week instead of the monk. That is why the monk is going to be in the D tier. Moving up to the C tier, we have the royal champion. The royal champion is just not there right now. It's just currently not strong enough to really nuke down the carries that are currently into the game. There's just a lot of stuns, there's a lot of invisibility, there's a lot of HP currently in the meta, and the royal champion just does not do well versus that. Next up, we have the B tier. The B tier is going to consist of 3 heroes: the Barbarian King, the Shield Maiden, and the Countess. I think the Shield Maiden is super underrated, and I really think that she should be in the A or maybe even the S tier, but I am going to put her in the B tier here because, you know, I just don't want to get absolutely bombarded with comments saying Enchatin, you're absolutely out of your mind. So I'm going to leave her in the B tier. She's not overpowered, but she does do very well in a lot of decks. And I personally like her. I think she is my favorite hero in this current meta, but she isn't super overpoweredly strong. That is why she's going to be in the B tier. The Barbarian King with his abilities, really, really good hero still, really solid staple, still in the meta, does pretty decent. The Countess also in the B tier here, does a lot of zooming around. It does work very, very well with the Electric Wizard, but it just isn't there in the A or the S tier. Next up, we have the A tier. This is going to be the last 3 heroes here. There is no S tier for the heroes for levels 8+. We have the Skeleton King, which is an absolute monster right now in the meta. The revive ability is just absolutely amazing. It isolates targets after it revives. It just does so much damage. It's tanky. It has everything you want in a hero. That is why it's going to be in the A tier. The Wave Master, the stuns galore, really, really strong here. Definitely in the A tier, especially with some healing heroes as well. Got to put the Wave Master in the A tier. And in my opinion, one of the best, if not the best hero right now, the Archer Queen. Very, very strong. Very, very good. The only real counter to the Archer Queen, in my opinion, is a Royal Ghost. But if you watch that Royal Ghost counter deck on our channel, which was last video, you would see how with a golden giant, your royal giant, or should I say royal ghost problems are completely solved. Now we're going to take a look really quickly at the hero levels 1 to 7. This is the only thing that changed here. We have the Skeleton King dropping all the way down to the D tier without the revive ability, without the extra HP. The Skeleton King, unfortunately, just does not do enough. Next up, we have the 2-cost minis here in the C tier. There is no D tier for the 2-cost minis. We have the Archer, the Barbarian, the Spear Goblin, the Swordsman, and the Miner. I've been trying to make the Swordsman work. It should be in the D tier, but I am confident somehow, some way, one deck in the game might make it work. I just can't put it in the D tier yet. I really want to, though, but it's going to be in the C tier. The Archer, with the nerfs to the Archer, it only works with the Barbarian King. It only works in certain decks, and it just is not strong enough right now in the current meta to be any higher. Barbarian as well, it still is a decently strong mini, but the problem is, without its 3rd-star ability really being so overpowered now because of the nerfs to the Archer and the Spear Goblin, it's going to be in the C tier. The Spear Spear Goblin as well in the C tier. A lot of people might be like, yo, Enchatin, put it in the B tier, but unfortunately, if you miss the Spear, you miss the B tier with the Spear Goblin. The Miner, actually pretty decent mini, especially countering a lot of other minis in the meta right now, but unfortunately, it's going to be in the C tier because we are just ranking them versus all the other 2-cost minis, and I just cannot put the Miner right now above the Archer. Next up, we have the B tier in the 2-cost categories. We have the Knight and the Guard. I know a lot of people are probably saying Guard should be C tier, but the Guard is just a very, very strong staple mini in my opinion. I think the Guard with the shield up, I think is pretty decent. I think it's a very low cost mini, and I think it does do decent in the meta. It's not good by any stretch of the imagination, but that's why it is in the B tier. Knight as well, just a tanky mini. Right now, the name of the game is HP, to protect your Dark Goblins, to protect your Witches, to protect your Electro Wizards, and that is why the Guard and the Knight are going to be in the B tier. Next up, we have the A tier. We have the Wizard and the Ice Wizard. I could have maybe put the Ice Wizard in the S tier because of the slows, but I just could not do that. It's just not overpoweredly strong, and that is what the S tier is for. Ice Wizard, absolutely amazing with the second star ability to slow AoE, and then the first star to really, really slow and neutralize every hero and mini that is in the front line. And the Wizard, very, very good mini, very good, strong mini, especially with the anti-healing, shuts down the Royal Ghost, shuts down the Wave Masters, the Countesses, the Barbarian Kings. It does do pretty good. It's not overpowered, but it is in a decent spot here, so we're going to put it in the A tier. Moving right along to the 3-cost minis here. There is no 3-cost mini in the D tier, so we're going to be moving on to the C tier here. We have the Valkyrie, the Lumberjack, and the Musketeer. Maybe the Lumberjack could have been in the B tier, but the Lumberjack right now just really doesn't synergize well with any deck. It kind of does okay in the Barbarian King deck, but it isn't really that strong. So for my opinion right now, we're going to put it in the C tier. The Valkyrie, maybe it could have been in the B tier as well, but the Valkyrie just takes such a strong deck around it for it to even be close to viable. That is why it's in the C tier, and definitely the worst 3-cost mini in my personal opinion is the Musketeer. That is why it's going to round out the C tier. Could the Musketeer been in the D tier? Yes, it could have, but we are going to keep it in the C tier for now. Next up, we have the B tier 3-cost minis, the Bowler, the Giant Skeleton, the Golden Giant, the Healing Ranger, and the Mini P.E.K.K.A. Now the B tier is just absolutely flooded with minis, and you'll see why I had to put all of these in the B tier, and I couldn't put them in the A tier, and I couldn't put them in the S tier. The Bowler's really good. If you hit the ball, worth. B tier, 100% all day. Giant Skeleton, the bomb drop, 100% B tier just because of that. The Golden Giant, so much HP, counters the Royal Ghost. You put him in the pocket, you got to put the Golden Giant in the B tier. The Healing Ranger does pretty good. If you can get the heals off, put it in the B tier if they don't have anti-healing. Mini P.E.K.K.A. as well does very, very good, especially with the Dissipate. Very, very strong, but you just can't put him in the A tier. In the A tier here, we have one mini, and that is going to be the Dark Goblin. This is why, I mean, I couldn't put any other minis in the A tier here, because the Dark Goblin is just so oppressive and strong when used correctly in the right setups, and that is why the Dark Goblin is going to be solely in the A tier, especially with the recent buff where it can stack indefinitely at 0 stars. That is very, very strong and puts the Dark Goblin in the A tier. In the S tier here, I think everybody knows, I think this is going to be unanimous, the Royal Ghost. In the S tier here right now, with it just going invisible and it just getting pretty much healing forever, and going with Isolated, doing 3 damage to other minis with the 3-star Royal Ghost. It just attacks too fast. We're going to put this in the S tier. Maybe they'll nerf either the attack speed a little bit or have a cast time on the invisibility. Either of those 2 nerfs will be perfectly fine for the Royal Ghost, but right now it is going to be in the S tier. Now we're going to be moving on to the 4-cost minis here. We have P.E.K.K.A. and the Fisherman. The P.E.K.K.A. Don't use it. Yes, it got a little bit of a buff, but there's just so many better 4-cost minis that you just can't use a P.E.K.K.A. Fisherman, same thing. Unfortunately, yes, it's okay. Yes, it might get some value if you pull, but no. don't use it. If you miss the pull, completely useless. 4 elixir out of the window. I would rather have stuns instead of the Fisherman. Next up, we have the C tier here, Magical Archer. Unfortunately, just still isn't there. The rework just did not hit with the Magic Archer. It just does not do enough to be viable still in the current meta. The reason why is because there is too many that I would choose 100% over it every single day of the week and twice on Sundays, because that's when we go to mama's house. C tier for the Magic Archer, that's just where he's gonna have to stay. B tier here, we're gonna have the Prince and the Battle Healer. The Prince is pretty good if you get a connection, worth. If you don't get a connection, miss. Anything that's hit or miss like that, I'm gonna have to put in the B tier. Yes, you might say, Enchatin, what about the Fisherman? Well, guess what? The Fisherman, however, just doesn't do anything. If you miss, it's just completely useless. That's why it's in the D tier. The Prince, if you miss it, it still can go to the back line and do damage. Battle Healer, the healing is pretty decent. It's just not strong enough. It isn't good enough to be in the A tier. It's not weak enough to be in the C tier. Next up, we have the Mega Knight in the A tier. It pretty much hits the entire field. That is why the Mega Knight is going to have to be in the A tier. I just cannot put it any lower. I can't put it any higher, and there's a reason why I can't put it any higher. The Mega Knight is an absolute boss right now, especially if you upgraded. The stuns are crazy. You pretty much just stun lock everything all the time, but it just cannot be in the S tier, and here is why. In the S tier, we have the Electro Wizard and the Witch. The reason why is because the Witch is the counter to the Electro Wizard, and the Electro Wizard is the counter to everything else. The Electro Wizard stun is absolutely amazing. I don't think it's overpowered superly, but I do think that it needs to have 0.5 seconds removed from the stun of the 3rd star ability. That would put it in a really, really good, strong place. I think that is where it needs to be. So instead of a 4-second stun, I believe it is, put it as a 3.5 second stun, and I think that'll be pretty good, or even a 3.25 second stun. I think that'll even be better for the Electric Wizard. And then the Witch here, the Witch spawns skeletons. It does everything you want. It's absolutely amazing. I don't think this mini needs to get touched. I think there just needs to be other AoE inside of Clash Mini that kind of allows them to easily be able to dispose of skeletons. I think maybe a little bit of an attack speed nerf to the Witch will be the answer here. But overall, I think the Witch is in a really good place, and I think it is a very solid S tier pick. And now on the screen, we're going to show you each and every single mini and hero. This is going to be the 1 to, or should I say 8+ hero plus all of the minis on a 1 tier list right underneath me. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think about this tier list. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? What do you think should be where? What do you think should be taken down a notch? What do you think should be taken up a notch? But thank you guys so much for watching this YouTube video. Hope you guys liked how I broke it down with the 2-cost minis and the 3-cost minis, then the 4-cost minis. Let me know if you're enjoying the content on the channel. If you are, hit a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see each and every single one of you for my next video.